My friends, the Persian Gulf is still in flames at this very moment. More than 30 explosions in Bahrain, more than 30 missiles fired at Kuwait, according to reports. And in the sky over Bahrain, something appeared that changes the stakes of this story. Missiles with fragmentation warheads, the same type they've already fired at Israel. The airports in Kuwait and Bahrain are closed at this very moment. Civilian planes circling in the air with nowhere to land, and the European Aviation Agency has just issued a formal warning. No airline should fly over Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, or the United Arab Emirates. The Gulf sky has literally become an official danger zone, and while the Gulf was on fire, 3 other things happened in the last few hours. The first is a decision by Trump that no one expected. He went back on something he himself had announced loudly and clearly, and the most impressive thing is that he wasn't the one who did it. According to reports, he was forced to do it. The second thing appeared in a square in Tehran, and this is, folks, the lowest thing this regime has ever done in public. I'm going to show you here what's written there, and I'm warning you right now, this is not a threat of war, this is something else. And the third is the main reason for this video. It's the question that no one is answering, and I'm at least going to try to answer it for you today. Why do the Americans always attack the same stretch of Iran's coastline? Why not Tehran? Why not the regime's leadership? Why always that same coast, night after night, and tonight, once again, more attacks on the coast? There's a military logic behind this, a logic that almost no commentator is explaining. Because almost no commentator understands the doctrine that Iran has built in those waters over the past 40 years. And when you understand this logic, you'll understand something that's right in front of you. You'll understand why that strait remains empty, even with the President of the United States saying every day that it's open. So stay with me because the headline won't tell you this. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel because I know you're not subscribed yet. And you haven't even left a like so far. And turn on the notification bell too, guys, because this story changes hour by hour. And today it's already changed 3 times. Smash the like button so we can start this video now. And don't forget to do it at the end. Here is the real-time price of oil, 81.40. The price of oil has already gone up. It paused there at 81. It's been like this for hours, but it did go up since yesterday. Let's begin with the attacks, since it's happening now. The main target tonight for now was Bahrain. And Bahrain isn't just any country in this story, guys. For those who don't know, it's the home of the US 5th Fleet. If there even is still any American fleet in that country, it's the naval heart of the United States in that whole region. According to reports from the region, more than 30 explosions were heard in the country. The Revolutionary Guard showed up and said they hit the airbase Sheikh Issa and the support structure of the American Navy. 30 explosions doesn't necessarily mean 30 missiles as they reported. It could be 30 fragmentation warheads. There were 30 explosives from this single warhead that fragmented, okay? So there were 30 explosions. And in the sky over Bahrain, something else appeared that I need to explain to you properly. It's already shown here in the images. Look at the images. It will appear again soon, coming from there. That's a missile with a fragmentation warhead. It's the kind of missile that opens up in the air. Then it opens, its warhead opens and spreads dozens of submunitions over a huge area. In other words, it doesn't choose a target. It doesn't fall exactly on the marked spot. It covers, for example, an entire neighborhood. And if you follow this channel, you probably already be familiar with this missile. It's the same type that Iran has already fired at Israel more than once. In other words, the weapon they used against us, they're using today against Bahrain. Against an Arab country, against a neighbor, and against Muslims. Just a reminder here, most people in Bahrain are not Sunni, they're Shia. They're Iranians, it's as if they were Iranians, but actually they're Shia Arabs. They're not Iranians, but they're Shia like the Persian Shia. In other words, they're firing at Shia folks, Muslims against Muslims. And this is where I want you to pay attention because this changes the way we look at tonight. Iran is responding much more strongly than on previous nights, folks. Tonight, it's more intense. In previous rounds, it was 10, 12, maybe 15 military targets at most. American base, a radar here, another one there. And today, there were more than 30 against Bahrain, more than 30 also against Kuwait, and with fragmentation warheads in the mix. According to the Iranian army there, the Revolutionary Guard, they destroyed a Patriot battery, and the place was left without any way to defend itself. They had to use fighter jets to try to intercept drones and missiles, okay? So it was a Patriot battery. According to them, that was destroyed in Bahrain. And I truly believe that they actually managed to do that because it's not impossible, guys. This isn't a response, this is escalation, okay? And Kuwait also got hit, and hit hard. The Kuwaiti army has reported the night's tally so far. From tonight until now, guys, it's 12:08 here in Israel right now. And today's date is July 15th, okay? Here in Israel, it's July 15th, not the 14th. We've already passed midnight here, okay? So the Kuwaiti army has reported the night's tally. The air defense, the anti-aircraft defense, shot down a ballistic missile, 5 cruise missiles, and 33 drones. 33 drones against one country, against a single country, in a single night. And look at the practical effect of this, because this is where it hits the real world. The airports in Kuwait and Bahrain shut down, folks. They stopped. Civilian planes were left circling in the air with nowhere to land, okay? They may have landed by now, but the airports really did shut down, folks, and the European Aviation Agency also issued an alert. Look at what they said, quote, "Unpredictable military developments, combined with the possible use of missiles, drones, fighter aircraft, and air defense systems, create a high risk for civilian flights." End quote. And I agree with them. I really do, folks. And here's my advice for you, and this goes for anyone who wants to travel, okay? Or for anyone who already has a trip booked. If your flight goes through Dubai, Doha, or any of those Gulf countries, I don't recommend that you board right now, folks. Just imagine the amount of stuff flying around in that region, okay? Missiles, drones, defense systems, right? In other words, the Patriot system could easily get confused. Could that happen, folks? It could mistake a plane, right? An airplane engine for a missile. Is that possible? Anything can happen in war, so I wouldn't risk it. This isn't fear, it's just math. Drones also can't detect civilian planes. It goes there, flies low, and could hit the plane. If this video gives you more than the headline, leave a like. I'm talking about the Gulf, not Israel. Israel is open for travel and everything is operating normally. There have been no attacks or missiles against Israel at the time this video was recorded. You might watch this video tomorrow morning and the story could be different, but right now, local time is 12:10 a.m. on the 15th. Okay? Everything is calm here, thank God. Look, the question is this. Why? Let's try to answer this here. Why do the Americans always strike on the coast of Iran? And now, I'm going to show you the map of the targets that were hit. I marked them, okay? I made these markings here. I went after every report that came out in the Iranian press, even reports from Telegram groups about targets here in the south of Iran. So I marked city by city to bring you this little map so you can get an idea of the targets that were attacked. Look at the size of Iran, okay? It's huge, right? And look where the targets are. There aren't any in Tehran, okay? There aren't any in Tehran. Look at this week's list of targets, guys. Coastal radars, air defense systems, command centers, anti-ship missile batteries, drone depots, Revolutionary Guard speedboats, and even fishing boats, okay? Notice something. There's nothing from Tehran on this list, guys. No government buildings, no ministries, no Revolutionary Guard headquarters in the capital, okay? Are there any Revolutionary Guard sites here? There are, but in the capital there's nothing. And it's not for lack of capability. Let's make this very clear. The Americans can hit Tehran. The moment they decide to do it, okay? They can easily do it. So why haven't they done it yet? And the answer is in an acronym that the military uses. And I'll translate it for you here in simple Portuguese. The Americans call it access denial. The idea is basically this. Iran has never had the capability to defeat the American Navy. Never. Not even close. We know this. It's a fact. There's no debate, guys. There's no comparison. So what did Iran do? It built something else over 40 years. It built a system designed to make these waters impossible to cross. That's what it did, guys. During all these 40 years, it built a fortress here, we could say. A fortress. And pay attention because this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. Iran's goal was never really to conquer the Strait of Hormuz. It was never to control this region here. Iran's goal is to make it dangerous for anyone who wants to cross those waters, right? To make them feel the risk. In other words, for anyone crossing those waters, it becomes too expensive, too risky, and too unpredictable. They don't really need to sink the American fleet. He just needs the ship owner, not the Americans, the ship owner to look at this map here and say the following. Today, my friends, I'm not going through there, okay? And that's why his setup is made of cheap stuff. Anti-ship missiles hidden here along the coast. Guys, you have no idea how many anti-ship missiles are around this region. This whole area is mountainous, okay? It's all mountains here, and they're not low mountains, folks. They're really, really high mountains. In other words, every little hole here in the mountain has missiles. Here on this island of Keros, there are missiles. Anti-ship missiles that are cheap, really cheap, hidden there along the coast. Speedboats, naval mines, you know what else they have? Look, I'll tell you something real quick. There's an island here with a speedboat that comes out of a cave. How is the plane, the fighter jet, going to spot that, guys? Boats that come out of caves, okay? These are the kinds of things they've been preparing here for 40 years, okay? So, fishing boats that are repurposed to drop mines here in the dark, in the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, we know none of this wins a war. But all of this together can close the strait. And now you understand the American logic. The Americans aren't aiming to overthrow the Iranian regime with these attacks, since these targets, like Abu Musa Island, won't topple the regime. A tiny island here in the middle was also attacked. Why? Because it probably has anti-ship missiles here. Look where it's located. The ship will leave from here, see? It will enter here, pass by, and be right in front of Abu Musa Island. Basically, the Americans are cutting part of it off. That's what's happening. They're cutting piece by piece the machine that Iran built to close off this area here, the radar that spots the ship, the missile that hits the ship, the speedboat that chases the ship, and the fishing boat that drops mines here in the dark. That's why the coast, because that's where this machine is based. Look at the number of targets up to the moment this video was recorded. It will probably continue throughout the night, and they're the same targets. And their ultimate goal is just this: to reopen the strait and force Iran back to the negotiating table with no leverage. Guys, that's what the United States wants. They want to force the Iranians back to the negotiating table. That's a fact, okay? They don't want to overthrow the regime, guys. But this American strategy has a very serious problem. A serious problem. A problem that no bomb can solve, because you can hit every radar, every missile, every boat along this coast here. You can clear out that entire coastline, even if it takes months. That can happen, okay? But fear has no address. It has no address, guys. And when it comes to fear, no bomb can hit it. Do you agree with me? If the ship owner is afraid to go through, he won't go through, whether or not that anti-ship missile is actually there, okay? He might say there's no missile, but it could be there. He won't act, so pay attention. What closes the Strait of Hormuz isn't the Iranian missile, it's the possibility of the Iranian missile. It's not the mine, it's the suspicion that there might be a mine there. So just a fishing boat loose in those waters, with a mine in the hold, is enough for the owner of a $300 million oil tanker to decide to wait another day before taking the risk. Iran doesn't need to hit, it just needs to be possible, okay? And that's why that southern route remains empty, even with the President of the United States saying that the strait is open. And I'm going to tell you right here, reports from here in Israel, from people who are in the know about all this, okay? Unofficial reports, but from insiders, people from the Navy, all right? There are no ships passing through here, guys. Despite Trump's claims, there is no one passing through this region. No ships on this other Oman route. Both are telling the truth at the same time, what he's saying here, at least he's trying to. The strait is open, that's true, and it's closed according to those who navigate. This is a fact. And that's the nature of asymmetric warfare. The weaker side doesn't need to win, it just needs to prevent the stronger side from getting what it wants. What does it want? To free it up, to reopen this strait. And that's what they won't be able to do, guys. And this is the most frustrating thing for a superpower like the United States. Because the United States can win every battle on this coast here and still lose the objective. If trade doesn't start flowing again. That's the objective, guys. If trade doesn't start flowing again, they lose the objective. And there's also a geographical detail that helps Iran. Just look at the map of this strait. The north coast belongs to Iran, and the navigable channel is narrow and shallow. This right here. This coast up here, it's Iranian. The upper part, okay? It's Iranian. And the other side, the one that goes by Oman, is very narrow and shallow. In other words, in most crossings, the ship ends up having to pass close to the Iranian coast. There is the southern route that hugs Oman, but it's tighter and not suitable for every ship. Iran didn't choose this advantage, it was born with it. And then there's the money issue, which is even harsher. Pay close attention, everyone. Let's look at the money now. Look at these numbers, because they're truly shocking. Public estimates say an Iranian drone like the ones they just launched costs between $20,000 and $50,000, and they launched about 30 of them. But let me tell you something. I think it's actually much less than that, okay? That's the public estimate, but I think it's way less than what they're saying, all right? I think it's around $5,000 to $10,000 at most. It's not just me. Analysts admit these numbers are from a Russian version of the drone, not the Iranian one. No one has ever really taken apart one of those Iranian drones to properly calculate how much it costs them. And Iran produces those on a large scale with local parts on an assembly line. The more they manufacture, the cheaper the drone gets. In other words, the real number is probably even lower. The actual cost is much lower. This makes things even worse for the other side, for our side. Pay close attention to how much it costs to shoot down this drone. The Patriot missile, the American missile that the Americans and the Gulf countries use a lot now, costs $4 million, guys. $4 million for each shot, each missile. Missile, $4 million. So do the math with me. $35,000 if that's the price of the Iranian drone, because I think it's much cheaper than that versus 4 million. It's absurd, isn't the difference? And there's also an even more expensive American system with interceptors that cost over 12 million per shot, guys. 12 million, and there are ship missiles that get close to $28 million to shoot down something that maybe costs 35,000. Do you understand this, guys? The difference in values is surreal. And here I want to make a side note too, because this is important. The Israeli system, the Iron Dome, I'm not talking about the Arrow here, because the Arrow is also around 4 million, okay? I'm talking about the Iron Dome here. It also shoots down these drones with missiles, but it costs $50,000, 50,000 versus 4 million from the Americans. It's better, right? It's better, 50,000. Israel is by far the most efficient in this regard, that's a fact, but now I'm also going to be honest with you, because this channel isn't about flattery, not even when it comes to our own technology. $50,000 per interception is still too costly for today's war, folks. It's very expensive. If you want to know why, just look at Ukraine. There, both sides launched thousands of drones, and look at how much those drones cost. Between $400 and $800. $400, folks. That's the price of a cell phone. It's basically the price of a cell phone. $400. And a $400 drone has already taken a $4.5 million Russian tank out of action. And there's something even worse. According to NATO itself, drones that cost less than $1,000 have already taken 2/3 of Russian tanks out of commission. Do the math, folks. 2/3 with drones costing less than $1,000. And Ukraine manufactures 50,000, these are estimates, 50,000 drones, 50,000 per month, assembled in garages and workshops by volunteers who learned to solder just last year, folks. And now tell me, how do you defend a country against 50,000 drones per month, spending $50,000 on each interception, like in Israel's case? $50,000, you just can't defend, folks. The math simply doesn't add up for anyone, not even for Israel. That's the uncomfortable truth of modern warfare. Attacking has become cheap and defense is still absurdly expensive. And whoever solves this imbalance first, whether it's with Israel's laser, a cheap interceptor drone, or whatever it may be, will dominate the battlefield in the next decade. And that's what's happening now in the Gulf. And that's exactly what Iran is doing. It produces drones in large quantities, and its strategy isn't to hit the target, but to make the enemy spend until their stock runs out. That's it, folks. This war has a time limit not because anyone will give up, but because the cost becomes unsustainable first. And now I'll say something that may upset many companies on both sides. The West should stop viewing this conflict through a profit lens. Because as long as each interceptor missile is a multi-million-dollar contract for a defense company, no one in that industry has any incentive to make the solution cheaper. And if the interceptor doesn't get cheaper, we won't win. Guys, that's a fact. There's no way. It's impossible. You can't win if the enemy spends $400 per shot and your response costs $4 million. The math defeats you before the enemy even beats you on the ground. Guys, that doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. What the West needs is efficiency and weapons with costs equivalent to the enemy's. We need lasers, interceptor drones, cheap solutions on a large scale. A lot of scale, guys, thousands per month. While this change doesn't come, and it should take years to arrive because it takes a long time for the West to start waking up, there's only one strategy left that will work, okay? This one works, it should work, and it's the one I've been repeating here for days. If you can't beat the machine, and you can't beat this machine at least for now, you take out the person who built the machine. As long as the loss is just a radar or a boat, the regime replaces everything in a few weeks and keeps doing its job. Because radars and boats are cheap, and the fear they create is free. The consequences need to reach the one who gives the orders. It needs to get there, and it needs to get there very quickly. Remember, international sources claim Israel eliminated the nuclear scientists. Why did they do that? Because it reached the ones who think, the ones who make, the ones who put it together, the ones who created it, right? So it needs to go there, to the top. Because this conflict here is on the clock. Time is ticking. The clock isn't military, it's financial. Whoever realizes this first wins. Those who are slow may win battles, but lose the war financially. And now let's talk about Trump's retreat, folks. Boots on the ground. We're going in. We're putting soldiers in there. It's the only solution. But we need to do this quickly, folks. We're going to have to do this very quickly because the Patriot missiles are running out. They're running out. Soon there won't be any left. Then how will you defend yourself? Will you end the war because of that? Are you stopping the war because you can't defend yourself? That might happen soon. Iran is behind this, using cluster munitions that split into 30 like just now. How will you handle that? How are you going to shoot down 30 warheads at the same time? Are you going to use 30 missiles that cost 4 million each? You're not going to do that, right, guys? So the cost in lives will be higher. Look at that drone there. Look at that drone that's coming. That's an Iranian drone. Look at the damage that a little drone like this can do. Look at that. That was in Bahrain against an American base. Pay attention. Look at the size of that explosion. A single drone, guys. Just one drone, and there wasn't a single Patriot missile there to try to intercept it. Why? They destroyed that missile battery according to information from there. Okay? From there. Now let's move on to Trump's retreat, because that was actually the biggest headline of the day. Here, look. The explosion of the cluster bombs. That's it. Each one of those little flashes there is a small warhead, guys. Each one of those is a warhead. You can't send an interceptor for each of those. You just can't. There's simply no way to do that. Look, yesterday, the US president announced that the United States would charge 20% of the value of all cargo passing through the strait. Everyone remembers that, right, guys? It wasn't yesterday. Actually, it was today. I told you clearly it was a mistake. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday. I can't even remember anymore. I've lost track of the days. I'm really exhausted. Look. Not because of Iran, okay? Look, guys, I came here and told you very clearly that was Trump's mistake. Do you remember that? Not because Iran is right, but because the American moral argument was exactly this. International navigation is free and no one charges a toll at sea. Today, Trump published the following, quote, "Based on very productive conversations with Middle Eastern leaders, I decided to replace the fee of 20 with trade and investment agreements that Gulf countries will make in the United States. The investments are huge. They're going to be huge, huge," end quote. In other words, the fee was gone in less than 24 hours. And look who made the American president back down. According to what's being reported here in the Middle East, it wasn't Iran this time. It wasn't the UN. It wasn't the press either. It wasn't the critics. It was the Gulf's own Arab allies who pressured to take that off the table, to take off the table the idea of charging 20 on cargo. Take that off the table. And look at the irony of the day. The American Secretary of State himself had already said a phrase back in June that was recorded: "No country has the right to charge a toll or fee on an international maritime route." That is international law in effect. That was Marco Rubio who said that. The Secretary of State said that a month later. The president announced the toll, and 24 hours later, he took it back. And I'm going to be fair here because this channel, folks, isn't anyone's propaganda. You understand? I'm not doing propaganda for anyone, folks. It's not anyone's propaganda. Trump made a mistake yesterday, and Trump corrected it today. Period. That's it. He corrected it. But the naval blockade against Iran wasn't cancelled, and it's already started. And Trump was clear about what he means by that. The Strait of Hormuz is open to all kinds of ships, except Iranian ships. We're going to have a total blockade, but, quote, "that go to or come from Iranian ports or that carry Iranian cargo," close quotes. In other words, the sea remains free for everyone except Iran. And this message here is smart because it separates Iran from the rest of the world instead of making the rest of the world pay for the problem that Iran created. And now I need to show you the most disgraceful thing to come out of Iran today, folks. The regime put up a poster there in that Palestine square. They have a square called Palestine Square there in Tehran, a giant poster in the central square in Tehran. And what's written on this poster is not a direct threat to Trump. It's not a direct threat to Netanyahu. It's a threat to their families, to their relatives, with the phrase written on top, "an eye for an eye," a state with a seat at the UN. Did you know that Iran has a seat at the UN? They have a seat at the UN, folks. A seat at the UN. They put up an official poster in a public square threatening the families of two heads of state. Not them, their families. The son, the wife, relatives, everyone who is close. Not the heads of state, the families. Just to remind you again, the families. This isn't politics. This isn't strategy either. This is the signature of a terrorist organization made with public money in the middle of a capital city. And Netanyahu responded to this today, and he chose the place very carefully. He went to Dimona, folks, which is where the Israeli atomic reactor is, there in the Negev desert, in the middle of the Negev desert, and from there he sent the message, open quotes, "I will say this to the leaders of Iran, do not count on silence if you strike us." Don't expect the same response as last time because it won't be the same response. It's going to be a different story. He said, it's going to be a different story, much more powerful. The days are over when someone strikes us and we don't strike back twice as hard. Close quotes. Netanyahu said it's going to be a different story. He said that from inside the Dimona reactor, okay? In the Negev, the most symbolic place in Israel to send this kind of message. And here, nothing is by chance, folks. One more thing today confirms what I told you yesterday. Yesterday I told you that the Americans, by taking down the communication towers along with the threat against the mountain over there at Picareta, it looked like preparation for an operation. This morning I said it again. It looked like a ground operation. I said it was just my interpretation, not a statement, since I don't know the United States plans. I can only imagine, based on these targets, that this would be the real truth behind this mission, right? Clear this area and prepare for a ground incursion, maybe here on Karg Island. Here, look, here, okay? Maybe here, maybe. Because today, the one who put that word on the table was the Iranian side itself. Pay close attention, guys. One of the regime's negotiators published the following. Trump has been secretly planning for weeks a heavy air campaign and a ground invasion with the support of the Arab dictatorships. If Trump starts this attack, those Gulf Arab regimes won't survive. Look at this, guys. Ground invasion. That's what the regime said, not me. He already knows it's planned for later. Also, note the hidden threat they've included. They warn that if this happens, if this invasion happens, the Gulf governments will fall. In other words, Iran is telling its Arab neighbors, if you let the Americans use your territory, we'll overthrow you. And is that possible? It's possible, folks. They can do it. They can overthrow some of these governments. It won't be very hard, okay? It's not very hard for them to achieve this goal, okay? So don't doubt it. This is state blackmail done in public. They once threatened Bahrain. Remember that Bahrain used to belong to them? And they threatened to invade Bahrain. Just reminding you all of what they said back then, okay? So yes, this possibility exists, and they have this capability. The Iraqi militias today, Iraqi Hezbollah, has already spoken about Iraq, not Iran. Iraqi Hezbollah said that if there is a total war against Iran, if Israel gets involved in this war again, they will go all in on this war. Guys, it's almost like an army. It's almost like another Hezbollah, like the one in Lebanon, but inside Iraq. In other words, right next to Kuwait. They could invade that area. It's not very hard, guys. This is a real war. Trump made another significant statement today that few reported. He was asked about the Iranian threat to his life. And he also hinted that there is a standing order in effect. That order to eliminate Trump would be a permanent order. The United States would automatically retaliate against Iran, okay? If he is hit, according to Trump. He added by saying that the one who would give this order would be the Vice President Vance. Do you think Vance will really do what he's saying? I highly doubt it. In other words, Trump set up a machine that keeps working even if he leaves the scene. And you've seen this same logic on the Iranian side, right? The Iranian supreme leader, the one nobody sees, the ghost, right? The guy nobody has ever seen, also put it in writing that his revenge doesn't depend on his presence. So if he's eliminated, the war goes on. Both sides have built machines that don't stop when the owner disappears. And this right here is the definition of a conflict that becomes automated. It's the most dangerous thing there is because it takes the decision out of the hands of those who could still, somehow, back out of this war. And before I leave you here, remember 3 things, folks. The American naval blockade is already in effect. It started today, okay? Actually, yesterday, here in Israel. It's yesterday for you, but it's still today here. It started yesterday at 11 p.m. Israel time. And the American military command has released the size of the force that's in this region now. More than 20 ships, folks. More than 20 American Navy warships and hundreds of military aircraft. 20 ships, hundreds of planes, all of that positioned around a single country. And their statement ends with a phrase that's not just for show. American forces remain vigilant, ready, and fully combat capable. And the regime has already warned that the response to this blockade will be unpredictable and beyond any calculation of those who planned it. So, 180 Iranian deputies out of a total of 290, 180 out of 290, signed a formal request for Iran to permanently withdraw from the Memorandum of Understanding. In other words, it's over, folks. There's no more war, folks. There's no more war. Right now, the United States is attacking Syria, okay? Right at this moment. Look at the number of planes here while I'm talking to you. The attacks once again are happening in Syria. Syria is right here. Look, here is Syria. There's Syria. Come here, look. See how small it is? Once again, a target here next to the Strait of Hormuz. Sirik, the attacks are happening right now, in real time, while we're talking. And the vast majority, folks, it's the vast majority who voted over there in Iran to leave the memorandum. It's over. In other words, the agreement that the world celebrated, that a lot of people celebrated in June, is dead. I didn't celebrate because I knew it wouldn't lead to anything, and the ones who buried this agreement were their own parliament. And the parliament also started the process to declare by law, to create a law there in Iran, that the Strait of Hormuz belongs to Iran definitively. They can't control those waters with a navy since there isn't one, just a few small boats. So they'll try to control it with paperwork. There's a Hebrew expression that sums up today. Let's learn one more Hebrew word. I'm not done yet, so stay with me. Don't leave this live stream. 7,000 people watching live, but only 4,800 likes. Guys, smash the like button on this video. Smash the like button, share it. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I ask you to subscribe, because 50% of the people who watch this video aren't subscribed to the channel, guys. I don't know why they're not subscribed. If you think you're subscribed, check your subscription too. Come on. Kav Adon. Kav, so you can read it more easily. Kavadon. It means red line in Hebrew. We use this a lot here in Israel. A lot. In the military world, we also use it a lot. There is a red line, there is a kavadon. In other words, it's not just talk, guys. It's the point where the response stops being proportional and becomes existential. A regime can threaten the army, can threaten a military base, can even threaten the president, because the president knows what he got into when he took this job, when he accepted this position. The president accepted this and is aware of the risks. But when the state puts up an official sign in a public square threatening the family of the head of state, that state hasn't just crossed a diplomatic line, it has crossed the kavadon, the red line. They just crossed it, folks. In the Middle East, that has a price. And the price always comes, folks. It always comes. Here in the Middle East, there is a kavadon. And today, more than ever, I want to know your opinion. What do you think the Americans should do now? Keep striking the coast, negotiate with the regime, or go straight after the leadership? Write your thoughts in the comments, because I read them all. I really do read all the comments. I can't reply to everyone, but I read your messages and sometimes give them a heart or a like. And if you've made it this far, you already know more about this war than 99% of the people commenting about it on the internet today. Most people really don't know anything, guys. 99% don't know anything. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with your family and colleagues. There's more to come tonight, and as long as there's fire here, I'll keep you updated. Check it out. Air defense systems activated in several places in Tehran. Look at that, guys. A few kilometers from Tehran, from the capital, okay? Air defense systems were activated in Farzin, which is located near Tehran. Attacks reported in Sinai Sirik in the province of Hormozgan. I've already marked it here on the map. I'll show the map here for those who just arrived. This says Sirik in Arabic. You can't read it, can you? But it's Sirik. Sirik is what's being hit right now. These are the targets, these are the reports up to this moment, maybe now near Tehran, okay? In Farzin, nothing confirmed yet. And it's rare for the Revolutionary Guard to confirm. We have to rely on reports. Explosions also in Bushehr. In Bushehr, that's where the nuclear reactor is. Here, look. Explosions reported in this region. Exactly where the nuclear reactor is, or near the Bushehr nuclear reactor. Look at the size of this city, guys. These aren't small cities here. They're huge cities. The airport here as well, the Bushehr airport. These are the reports for now. Let's see. There are rumors of Netanyahu visiting the White House next week, okay? According to Barak Ravid, there's nothing scheduled regarding Netanyahu's visit to the White House next week. Real-time news, folks. It's live, 12:38 after midnight, local time here in the Middle East. Let's take a look at the Strait of Hormuz. As you can see, there's no transponder on. This is the dangerous passage, where it's very shallow to get through. There isn't any ship, at least, with the transponder on. And according to the Navy, influential people, big names in the Navy, who gave interviews today on the radio and TV, said that there really isn't any ship passing through here, even with the transponder off. Those who tried got shot at, so they won't try again. The route on the Iranian side is still open. We're seeing these ships here. Look, movement, you see here. Look, movement going to the Iranian side as usual. In other words, but there's a huge buildup here in Oman. Look at this. All of this is ships, guys. No kidding. Look at the number of ships. Each ship with a flag from somewhere. Look at that. United States. I have no idea where this flag is from. Flags from all over the world. Malvina. Just look at the number of ships on this side and the number of ships on the other side here stopped, waiting for this situation to be resolved. But inside here, it's already gone down a lot, right? There used to be a lot more in here. Let's go over here to the planes. They're increasing the number of planes in this area now. There were just 2 until recently. Where's the intelligence plane? He was here. Where is he? He's not here anymore. At least not on this transponder. Here he is. Look where the plane is. Look where the plane is, the E3B, look where it went. It was here earlier today. Where's this plane headed, guys? Tell me. Will it land in Israel, change its route, or go to Iraq? Will it circle up here to move closer to Tehran? Could tonight bring more than the night before? It left the spot where it usually shows up. Look, it's gone. The plane disappeared while we were talking. It disappeared, turning off the transponder. Where's the plane headed? Here are more American planes in the Jordan region. According to reports also not confirmed by the American military, the planes that were at the base, here at the base in Jordan, took off today towards Israel because they were hit. According to unconfirmed reports, which will hardly be confirmed by the Americans, planes like these here were destroyed, okay? At the base in Jordan. They were destroyed, right? Reports from the location, folks, a Jordanian speaking. What is the estimate of how many missiles Iran still has? No one on this planet can give that estimate. No one can say that, folks. Everyone who says it is just guessing. Everyone. Whether it's Netanyahu, Trump, or Centecono, any of these guys are just guessing. No one has any idea about the number of missiles. Look at the size of Iran, my friends. Look at the size of this place. The attacks are only happening here. We haven't even started. Look at the size of this country. It's huge, guys. It's gigantic. What can you hide in these mountains here and keep hidden there indefinitely? You can't win this way, not with airstrikes. Guys, this could go on for years like this and there won't be any winners here. You need to overthrow the regime. That's the only solution to this war, to overthrow the regime. It's about coming here to Tehran, removing the leaders from there and overthrowing the regime. Otherwise, you won't win this war just by firing here in this region. Okay, you cleared this area. You took out everything you needed from here. You took them all out, which I think is very difficult, but let's say they managed to destroy all the targets they had here. All the boats, missiles, drones that exist in this region. Alright, and then they'll build it again. 2, 3, 4 weeks later, everything is back here once again. Then we go through this whole thing all over again. It's a soap opera, guys, it's a soap opera. What map is this? It's the map of targets in Iran, guys. This is the map, I marked it. Look here, I marked the targets, alright? I marked each target here, look. According to reports and notifications from CENTCOM as well, where they said there were strikes or anyway, they bombed here. I marked each of these targets. See here, look. Marked according to reports and what CENTCOM also reported. This is the map. Will Trump wait for something serious to happen to him or his family before taking serious action? Mortadella is bad for the brain. They're making runway paving on the coast for boots on the ground. Guys, look at this. First, he informed Congress that this is not going to happen. He officially said there will be no soldiers on the ground, okay? It's a quick mission with a clear goal. What is the mission? Overthrow the regime. You won't be able to do it, okay? You won't succeed that way. You need the people with you. You need the people there to be able to overthrow the regime, period. Without the people, you can't do it. Can you conquer this Karg island here? Yes, you can. It's a small island. You can do it. Without much effort. Alright? This is the easiest part. Conquering this island is literally taking Iran's bank account, taking their wallet. That's it. You wipe out Iran's money by conquering this island. If I were Trump, I would go for this option here. This option? I would mine this region here in Bushehr. See here, look. As much as possible. To prevent anyone from here from escaping to try to fight me here. The last option would be to enter Tehran, which would be a very difficult war. Okay, to conquer this city here. To conquer this city. Take over the capital and overthrow the government. But that's surreal. That's not going to happen either. It's not going to happen. Only with the help of someone from the inside, guys. The Americans are not going to physically enter Tehran. That's unlikely to happen, guys. This isn't Iraq, it's Iran. A different story. For me, everything is dark, nothing shows up, nothing. My friends, this is the live stream right now. This is the live stream right now. If things heat up during the night, or if there's an alarm in Israel, I'll be back at any moment, okay? Live from Israel, right where everything is happening, straight from the source. Hugs to all my friends, and see you at the next live stream.